The moment you go silent, something shifts, and they feel it instantly, even if they can't explain why. You stop reacting the way you used to. You stop filling every gap with words. You stop explaining yourself before they even ask. And that's when the tension begins to build beneath the surface. Because people rely on patterns more than they realize, and those patterns give them a sense of control in every interaction they have. They expect you to respond in certain ways, to reassure, to clarify, to react emotionally when something happens. And when that pattern suddenly disappears, their mind doesn't stay calm. It starts searching. At first, it's subtle, almost unnoticeable. They notice the difference, but they tell themselves, it's nothing. Maybe you're just busy. But then it happens again. You don't react the way they expect, and now their certainty begins to crack in a way they can't ignore. Because without your reactions, they have nothing to hold on to. No clear signal, no emotional feedback. And the human mind is not designed to sit comfortably in uncertainty. It tries to fix it. It tries to rebuild the pattern, but it can't. And that's when overthinking begins to take control. They replay your last conversation in their mind, going over every detail, every word, every pause. Was it something they said? Was it something they did? Now their focus shifts entirely toward understanding you. And the more they try, the more confused they become, because silence doesn't give answers. It creates space. And in that space, their thoughts get louder than anything you could have said. They begin imagining scenarios, building explanations. They wonder if something is wrong, if they've lost your attention. You simply remove the reaction they depended on, and without realizing it, you've changed the entire dynamic. Now they're the one analyzing. The roles have shifted, quietly but completely, and they feel it, because every moment of silence adds weight to their thoughts. Every lack of reaction pulls them deeper into their own mind, and that feeling is uncomfortable. It's unfamiliar. It's out of their control. So they start watching you more closely than before. The way you speak, the timing of your responses, everything starts to feel meaningful. Unpredictability creates tension. It holds attention. It makes them return to the same thoughts again and again without resolution. And without an answer, the mind doesn't rest. It keeps building possibilities that may not even exist. Because unfinished situations are hard to let go of. And your silence leaves everything unfinished. An interpretation is where control begins to slip away. They don't know if they're right, and that uncertainty keeps pulling them back. And that's when the shift begins to take hold, not in what you say, but in what happens inside them when they can't read you anymore. And once that shift begins, it doesn't fade, it builds. Because now they're not just noticing your silence, they're feeling it. Every interaction becomes heavier. Every moment feels more significant because they still don't understand what changed. And that lack of understanding creates a tension they can't release. They start comparing everything, how you are now versus how you used to be, looking for patterns, differences, anything that gives them clarity. But the more they look, the less they find. Because silence doesn't give clues, it removes them. And without clues, the mind doesn't relax. It searches harder, trying to make sense of something that was never clearly explained. And that's where the pressure starts to build inside them. Not loud, not obvious, but constant. A quiet mental loop that keeps pulling their attention back to you again and again. Even when they try to focus on something else, something interrupts it. A thought, a memory, a question they still haven't answered. Because unfinished situations don't disappear. They stay active in the mind, and your silence leaves everything unfinished. No explanation, no closure, no emotional resolution. Just space. And that space becomes the center of their focus. They start questioning things more deeply now. Not just what you think, but how they come across to you, how they're perceived, whether something about them caused the shift, and the more they question, the more emotional it becomes. Because now it's not just curiosity, it's self-awareness mixed with doubt. And that combination creates pressure. They replay conversations not once, but multiple times, trying to identify a moment they missed. Something small, something subtle, something that explains why you changed. But nothing stands out clearly, and that's what keeps the loop going. Because when something is clearly communicated, it can be resolved. But when it's left open, it stays active. It stays unfinished. And unfinished things demand attention. That's why they keep thinking about you, even when they don't want to. Because their mind is trying to close something that never gave them the information to close it. And the more they try, the more involved they become. Because attention creates attachment. And attachment doesn't always come from positive emotion. It often comes from unresolved tension, from questions without answers, from situations that never fully made sense. And your silence creates exactly that. You didn't push them away. You didn't reject them. You didn't create distance in an obvious way. You simply removed what they expected from you. And that removal created a gap. And that gap is what their mind is trying to fill. With thoughts, with assumptions, with emotional interpretations that feel real, even when they're not. And most of those interpretations lean toward insecurity. Because when people don't understand something, they assume something changed, something shifted, something is different now. And that difference becomes the focus. They start watching you more closely than before, trying to pick up on signals, trying to read your expressions, your tone, your timing, looking for something they can decode. But the more they look, the more unpredictable you seem. And unpredictability creates tension. It holds attention in a way that's hard to ignore, because the brain is wired to seek patterns, and when it can't find one, it keeps searching. Over and over again, and that's when they start adjusting their behavior, becoming more aware, more careful, more reactive to you, because they don't know what to expect anymore. And when people don't know what to expect, they invest more energy, more focus, more attention, all directed toward you. Even though you're doing less, even though you're saying less, because what changed wasn't your effort, it was your predictability. And predictability is what most interactions are built on. Once that's gone, everything feels different. Everything feels uncertain, and uncertainty creates emotional movement. It pulls people in, it keeps them thinking, it keeps them engaged, without you needing to do anything more. And that's where the dynamic fully shifts. Before they could read you, they knew what to expect. They felt comfortable in that certainty. But now, that certainty is gone, and in its place is unpredictability. And unpredictability is powerful, because it holds attention without explanation. It creates tension without effort. It keeps someone mentally engaged long after the moment has passed. They might try to break the pattern, send something, say something, test the situation, just to see if things go back to normal, just to see if they can get a reaction out of you again. Because a reaction would give them clarity, something to work with. But if you stay consistent, if you don't fall back into old patterns, that only deepens the effect. Because now, it's not temporary, it's a new dynamic. And new dynamics take time to understand. But in this case, understanding never fully comes, because there's nothing obvious to decode. And that's what keeps them stuck in the loop. Thinking, analyzing, questioning, trying to figure out what changed, trying to regain a sense of control over something they no longer understand. And the more they try, they realize something uncomfortable. They're not in control anymore. Their thoughts are, their interpretations are, their emotions are. Overthinking, replaying, analyzing. Trying to understand something that never gave them clear answers. And that's where attention turns into something deeper. Because now, it's not just about curiosity. It's about resolution. They want to resolve how they feel. They want to understand what happened. They want to close the gap your silence created. But they can't, because the gap was never meant to be filled with explanation. It was created by absence. And absence doesn't give answers. It creates space. And in that space, their mind keeps working, filling it with thoughts, with emotion, with meaning that may not even exist. And the more they think, the more real it feels. The more they focus, the stronger the effect becomes. Because attention amplifies everything, and your silence directs their attention inward. Into their own thoughts, into their own interpretations, into their own emotional reactions. And that's the real shift. Not what you say, not what you do, but what happens inside them when they can't read you anymore. Because once they experience that uncertainty, it doesn't just disappear, it stays, it lingers, it repeats in their mind long after the moment is gone. And the more it repeats, the stronger it becomes. Because now, it's not just about you. It's about how they feel when they think about you. And those feelings are tied to uncertainty, to unpredictability, to something they can't fully control. And people don't easily let go of things they can't control. They try to understand them. They try to solve them. And that process keeps them connected, even without direct interaction, even without conversation. Because the interaction didn't end. It moved from the outside into their mind, where it keeps looping, repeating, building, until they finally recognize something they can't ignore anymore. They're not reacting to you anymore. They're reacting to the version of you they can't understand. And that's where everything changes. Because once someone is reacting to their own thoughts about you, you no longer need to do anything to hold their attention. It's already there. And it keeps growing every time they think about you, every time they question what changed, every time they try to understand your silence and fail to find a clear answer. Because that's the moment the dynamic fully flips. Not when you speak, not when you explain, but when you don't. Because silence didn't push them away, it pulled them inward, into a loop they created themselves. And the moment they realize they can't break that loop is the moment they lose control. And that's exactly where your power begins. When you embrace Stoicism, you learn that life is not about controlling external events, but about mastering your own mind. And yet, many people struggle to apply these principles in the chaos of daily life. Thoughts run wild, emotions flare, and distractions constantly pull your attention away from what truly matters. That is exactly why subscribing to this channel is more than a simple click it, is a commitment to your own practice. Here, we don't just talk about Stoicism. We show you how to live it, step by step, until it becomes instinct. Imagine waking each day with the clarity that nothing outside your control can disturb your inner calm. Imagine facing challenges without panic, without overthinking, without reacting impulsively. This is the essence of Stoicism. Learning to see what you can control and letting go of what you cannot. But knowledge alone is not enough. You need constant reinforcement, reminders that guide you back when the world's chaos threatens. That is exactly what subscribing to this channel provides. Every lesson is designed to strengthen your resilience. Consider the moments when you are frustrated by other people, by circumstances, by expectations. Stoicism teaches that these frustrations are not caused by events themselves, but by your judgments of them. By following our content regularly, you create a mental habit loop. You see these principles applied, repeated, and reinforced. Stoicism is not about suppressing emotions. It is about understanding them and responding with intention. We show you how to pause before reacting, how to examine your impulses, how to choose thought over emotion. Every day, life presents small tests. A Stoic faces them with deliberate composure and careful observation. Consider the principle of amore fati, the love of fate. A Stoic embraces everything that happens as an opportunity for growth. Stoicism also emphasizes perspective. Many people suffer because they magnify the significance of events. Daily practice is the key. True mastery comes from repetition, from reinforcement, and from consistent application. This channel is designed as that daily practice. By subscribing, you are actively participating in your own transformation. People encounter triggers constantly: criticism, failure, disappointment. Stoicism teaches that these are opportunities for mastery. Another critical aspect is reflection. A Stoic constantly evaluates their own actions, thoughts, and habits. Stoicism also emphasizes control over desire. By understanding impulses and practicing restraint, you gain freedom. In essence, subscribing is a commitment to yourself, a promise to integrate Stoicism into every aspect of life. Even when challenges escalate, the Stoic practices you develop here hold steady. Your calm presence becomes a tool. Subscribing ensures that you never lose touch with these lessons, so that Stoicism becomes a lived reality rather than a philosophy.